Good morning, it's just gone 11 o'clock and it is your Sunday Blether time. Welcome to the Bhoycie Bus. I'm your host today, David Logue, and as always I'm joined by the Riddler himself, Mr. Phil McGinley. How you doing, my man?
I'm not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Bit cold, obviously. It's the cold snap is set in. A lot of snow and ice outside my window just now in the central belt here. But yeah, otherwise all good to go. And I'm glad to see that the game's going ahead. Because on Friday night, when I did the Friday show, it was like weather permitting, but it looks like there's no obviously of any but pitch inspections this morning, so it's all good to go. And of course, the team lineups are out. So
yes,
yeah,
let's bring them up just now. Let's just get straight into it because we're only doing a 45-minute show today because we want to let you guys get ready and settled in front of the telly or get your pies in the oven, which we'll sure get onto. But here is the lineup. Can we get rid of the Sunday Blether tag for a second?
Sure.
So no real changes. We've got obviously Joe Hart in goals, Arthur Johnson, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Scales, Taylor, McGregor, O'Reilly, Turnbull, Yang, Palmer and Kyogo. And of course the bench, Bain, Phillips, Holm, Tomoki, Bernardo, who I want to talk about today, Forrest, Ralston, and of course the chosen one. The chosen one,
Yeah.
Nicky Johnson, the one that will bring balance to the force is. So let's get talking about that. But just before we do, I suppose I better get the old stuff out of the way, you know. So obviously, like, share, slag our hair, as Alex Forsyth makes sure he gets that tagline at the end of the day. There it is. Slag our hair, slag my facial hair, do all that fun stuff. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Become a Bhoycie Bus member for a small cost of $1.99. It's totally optional. All our content is free. It just helps the bus tick along nicely. And of course, piesports.com. Get on there and select Bus 1888 or type Bus 1888 into the checkout and get your 12.5% off all your orders. Phil, that lineup, are you surprised at all by this lineup today after what we saw midweek?
Nah, no surprise at all. That's pretty much what I was expecting. I spoke on Friday night. Turnbull is probably the one that stands out. I imagine Marc Cairney right now is tempted to kick his TV screen in because he sees Turnbull's name there. We know how he feels about him. But I said on Friday, myself and Connor and Liam talked about it, I felt Turnbull was going to get the nod. Again, because this is one of these stodgy games, stodgy team, a stodgy manager. I'm Craig Levine in charge. I don't expect St Johnstone to be trying to play any sort of football today. It's going to be 10 men behind the ball and hope to hit us on the counter, probably late in the game. And David Turnbull, I think a few weeks back, we played Ross County up at Dingwall. He's not afraid to have a pop from the edge of the area. And I think that's the type of stuff we're going to have to do today. None of this keep passing just for the sake of passing, waiting for something to open up. We're going to have to test our goalkeeper as much as we can. I think Turnbull has shown that he can do that. Quite astounding as well to find out, I mentioned this on Friday night, that he is currently the top goal scorer as well, with 7 goals, which took me definitely by surprise. I was like, wow, how did that happen? But yeah, it's just one of these things. He's just been quietly doing what he does. Yeah, he's not the best of players. I know he's not the answer long term. I'm not the biggest David Turnbull fan, but I think right now, the way things are, we've just got to get through to this January window, get through this festive period. I say we need to get to the January window. We need to then hope that the board are going to react accordingly because every fan can see it. You can see it. Actually, all the people in the chat can see it. We've said it long enough now. The team definitely needs some rejuvenation. But right now, Brendan's got to use what's available to him. So that's the only name really that I think was up for debate really of who was going to play. Everything else though, looking at the team, I think it's pretty much it's picking itself right now with what's available.
Yeah, I mean there was talks that we might see Bernardo get back in the team again. However, I wasn't overly surprised to see that he hasn't made the squad. But I want to quickly talk about Bernardo. Like, what is going on with Bernardo? This is a guy that, for some reason, barely features at all domestically. Yet looks like he's the first name on the team sheet every Champions League game we've played. He's played more minutes in the Champions League than he has domestically. And I mean, we all know how Tuesday night went. But I thought Bernardo actually, again, looked maybe one of our better players. So what is the thinking behind this whole Bernardo situation? Why after a pretty reasonably decent display in every game he's played in the Champions League is he not getting in the starting lineup at all domestically against a struggling St Johnstone side? I mean, surely isn't anything in his contract to say that he has to play in the Champions League. I can't see Benfica being able to get that in a contract on a loan deal for a player that they're quite happy to let go permanently. Like if he has a successful season here, like what do you think is going on there? Because I feel like the fact that we are chopping and changing this midfield so much is actually stifling the fluency that we should be having at this point in the season. I don't want to keep harping back to Ange. He's long gone now and he's at Spurs. But one thing about Ange was there was always a consistency in his team choices. Now maybe you could argue at the detriment of maybe some players, Giakoumakis. However, proof was in the pudding. He didn't change that centre, that back line at all, and we know that Carter Vickers and Starfelt didn't lose a domestic game together. The midfield picked itself, and the up front picked itself, and the fluency was there. And I just wonder if because maybe Brendan still doesn't know or trust that he has a first choice 11, you could say, especially in that midfield area. Maybe that's what's causing us to be the slow, more turgent sort of style of football right now. And I know we're still undefeated domestically, but the performances just aren't there. And I wonder if it's to do with the fact that the midfield keeps changing. But I just can't understand how Bernardo gets into that Champions League team every game, yet struggles to get past the likes of Holm and Turnbull, despite being our top goal scorer this season.
Well, Brendan's going to have to find something for Bernardo to do because we ain't got any European football to look forward to after Christmas time because we are out. It's a strange one. It is odd that he does keep on getting the nod for the European stuff. Also with Hatate's injury, that shot's always up for grabs. But even before Hatate's injury, we saw the season started, Hatate wasn't even guaranteed a place in the team, which is astounding given how good he is and what he's done for us in the last year and a half that he's been here with the club. So even Hatate was struggling to get into the team. Again, when you think if it's a case of Brendan feels like he hasn't got somebody that he trusts yet or he doesn't know who his best option is, then you have to imagine that if we dip into the market in January, and it's a big if, because again, we just don't know what the strategy is right now, you've got to imagine a central midfielder must be something that he's looking at. And maybe, just maybe, Brendan's got somebody that he wants, because again, looking at the signings, can we really say that they're all players that Brendan wanted? The evidence shows otherwise, because again, there's no consistent picks in who he's going with. And again, going back to Bernardo, I think he's been okay so far. I'll echo again what I said on Friday night, where I just feel like he hasn't had that moment yet, where you can really, what a player he is. Because again, Mark uses the analogy all the time with this boy being on loan and having a price tag to him, but an option to buy. Would you buy him tomorrow? It's like, well, no, because what I've seen so far, I've not seen enough to really get an idea of a real impression on the game, what his style is. I feel like a lot of games at the moment, he's just kind of there. I haven't seen anything really outstanding. He's been okay, not terrible, just very middle of the road. So, but again, we need to see game time, and if it's going to be reserved to European games, I'll say we're shit out of luck going into the second half of the season because we ain't got any European games to look forward to, so he's going to have to find a way to use him somewhere. I think the only domestic game he started was the 0-0 draw with Hibs. So the one game I think he started is a game that we dropped points in. But again, I don't think that's all necessarily his fault. But midfield is such an important part of any team. It's always the engine room. Everyone talks about it. The games are won and lost usually in the midfield. So it's like this is such a vital position. I talked on Friday night as well about the sort of dip in Callum McGregor. I know, a lot of fans, don't want to necessarily go down that road, but you have to, say it like it is. McGregor has not been anywhere near as effective as he's been in previous seasons. Is the amount of games he plays catching up to him? I wouldn't like to think so. I think he's still got it in him to still play, a decent number of games for a calendar year. Is it the system that he's playing in? I think that's more likely. I think a lot of players have had a big drop-off compared to last year. As much as and I've championed Brendan Rodgers long before he came back, I've always been very pro, but I have to admit that, yeah, so far, it's not really working. But again, it's a big circle. It keeps coming back to the same point again, David, where that's all well and good, right? If the system isn't working, so surely Brendan must have an idea in his head of the players he wants to fit that system. So how does he get those players? Again, when a transfer window rolls around, we need to see those players coming in. And again, we're in limbo right now. We just don't know what's going to happen when this window opens in January. Earlier on, somebody said, on one of the replies that Mickey Moynes said that Stevie Wonder can see it when I was talking about all the people that could see the problems with the team. You're right. You're totally right. Blind man can see it. You'd like to think that the board can see it as well. We need to obviously freshen up this team. And going into the second half of the season, we've only got 2 trophies on the table to play for that we really do have to be looking to winning now to solidify our sort of dominance in the Scottish game. And we can't go for another half season with this sort of plodding sideways football, because I know you said we're top of the league, and obviously that's true. That's a fact. We are still top of the league. We are still undefeated, but it's going to catch up to us eventually. There's going to be a game where we can't get through at all, and the other team gets like a snidey 1-goal lead, and they just hold on because we just keep passing it sideways, waiting for some space to open up.
Yeah. Mickey also said, I'm just concerned that the slow, ponderous, turgid play is just our brand now. And that's crossed my mind as well, Mickey. It's just like, I mean, we were always a bit, we always kind of said that Brendan's first couple of seasons were rock and roll football. And then that third season was, it did become a bit bland and a bit turgid and a bit slow, and I kind of feel like we are there at the minute. And I just wonder, remember, I'm going back again, but remember at this time in Ange's first season, it was a case of, let's just get to January, we just need to get to January, we've got players out, we're having to use players in a system that they aren't actually good enough for.
Yeah.
Until we can get the January signings in. And I kind of wonder if that's where we're at. I wonder if Brendan's going, like, we'll just get to January and then I'm getting the boys that I want to play this system. This is maybe a sort of slight look into what our system's going to be, but we're just not got the players to do it right now, and that's why it's coming across a bit more slow, a bit more ponderous, because the players maybe don't have the confidence to play in the way that Brendan wants. Who knows? But what's that sound? I hear Regan is entering the building, guys. So let's bring in Regers. And you come, Regan. Regan, as usual, mate.
Alright, lads, how we doing?
All good.
I'm doing good, mate. How are you?
Bit of a sore throat the last past week, but I'm doing alright, mate. Doing all good.
Is that all that shouting at Lazio game on Tuesday night, mate? Is it burnt you out?
It's burnt me out. I've just get fed up with Celtic Europe, It's just getting to that stage now where I'm losing faith in Europe. We're becoming the whipping boys in Europe. But anyway, I've not seen the team yet, guys, so maybe you can keep me.
Well, Regan, just here you go, my man. Have a wee nosy. So you've got obviously Joe Hart, Johnstone, Carter, Scales, Taylor, McGregor, O'Reilly, Turnbull, Yang, Palmer, and Kyogo.
Aye, that's that. I think that'll get the job done today, to be honest, lads. I don't know what you guys think, but I think 12 o'clock, I think the very important thing for us today is to get that goal very early, because you don't want to give these little clubs ammunition. We did it last week with Motherwell. We gave them ammunition. We got that late penalty from David Turnbull, but then they thought to themselves, they're 1-0 behind. And what these clubs enjoy, David, is they enjoy the scoreline being tight. So we can get a goal early, because there's no doubt about it. St Johnstone will allow us to have the majority of the ball. So it's about us breaking down that. And Brendan Rodgers said that on Friday as well. He said, we're going to have the majority of the ball. So the players that I put on the park are going to have to learn that every team that we play against is going to play a low block. So we need to find a way. They're going to set up to be compact. And I think Ross County will be buoyed the fact that Livingston and Ross County both didn't play, and Livingston's all-weather plastic pitch that's supposed to be great. So they'll be
All
buoyed,
weather, but this weather.
Yeah.
they'll be buoyed by that. And I think especially that Livingston don't look great this season. And obviously Derek Adams, he started off really well at Ross County, getting 4 points for his first 6. So when you look at that, St Johnstone have got all to play for, but I fancy Craig Levine to avoid them for the drop now, because David Martindale's side don't look as if they're picking up any sort of form. And I think he even admitted on Friday that they're going to be a relegation battle. So I think for Celtic, this is an ideal game where we can really stretch our lead to 11 points. And I think in terms of the St Mirren game later on, I think that'll take care of itself. I think today's game is actually very important for the confidence of the squad, because if we can get a good 4 or 5 nil match, then I think this could really step us on. I mean, I looked at this game last season where Aaron Moyes scored his first goal for Celtic in this fixture. I think Andrew Considine scored an own goal for the first 2 minutes, and that really set us up to like a 4 or 5-0 win. I think if we can do something similar to that, I think I remember Brendan's last match at Mcdiarmid, and it was Timothy Weir. He scored one and he set up one.
Counter-attack goal, wasn't it? Counter-attack.
Yes.
Yep.
And then his second last game was the James Forrest. James Forrest scored 4 goals, I think.
Oh, I remember him ripping St Johnstone apart at Mcdiarmid.
I was in Prague that day. I was in Prague that day and had a look at my phone.
Remember Giacomakis scoring very late on last year at Mcdiarmid, where what Regan says is correct, where we were winning 1-0, but it was getting late in the game, and these teams also get a bit of, they start to get a bit of belief if it's still only 1-0 going late in the game, so they were just throwing men forward, scored off a set piece in stoppage time, then we literally kicked off and went up the park and scored. But I can't be doing with that today. We want to just get the job done. You don't want to be deep 95 minutes played or whatever, scoring the winner then. I'd rather just get the job done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, just spot on there, Phil. I mean, we want to get this job done with a minimum of fuss, and then bring all the focus to Ibrox, because St Mirren are playing well this season. They've got some really good players. Marcus, who is well known to Australian people. You've got Strain, who's a good player. Quite a few good. Mark O'Hara, who's scored a few goals against Rangers before. Big Celtic fan, so I think they've got all the players there to really cause Rangers to upset. Especially when you look at the other night, I didn't think Rangers were up too much.
I've got a funny feeling that their result will take care of itself. They'll if they need it, they'll get a helping hand. Put it that way. I've got a funny feeling that might happen. But yeah, maybe we'll live in hope. I mean, a few weeks ago, I didn't think Aberdeen would go to Ibrox and get a victory, and they did. So, we'll just need to wait and see. But I always go into the mentality that they'll get the 3 points by hook or by crook. So we just need to do our job first and foremost, because we definitely got off the hook last week after not doing our job. So.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that game last week was just like something I watched Neil Lennon back in time, And I was actually thinking this week, lads, that see if you actually look at I was actually looking at Neil Lennon in the papers this week, saying that he wants a Republic Island job. I mean, can you imagine Mikey Johnston's face when he sees him in the dressing room?
Well, I can imagine Neil Lennon's face when he sees Mikey Johnston in the podcast dress. We'll be doing that. That'll be it. If that happens, definitely.
Yeah, but no, I just didn't think we were going to score at all last week, Phil. I thought we were just so lethargic. Mm-hmm. But I think it just shows you as well that, see, when you've got too much reliance on Kyogo, I mean, it just we need to have somebody else in there. I don't know if you guys know this, but Brendan Rodgers actually hinted on Friday that Abada and who's the other one that's injured? Abada.
Maeda's injured.
Maeda. He said Abada and Maeda will be back by December, but Rio Hatate might be a bit longer.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So for me, midfield has got to be somewhere that we look at in January, because it's got to be a problem position, because if, no disrespect to David Turnbull, but if we're relying on that guy to win us the title, then I think we're
top goal scorer this season somehow. I don't know, but apparently he is.
So a champion of Turnbull in the chat would be Monty, and he believes that he's just not getting enough game time. Now, this is the David Turnbull that has apparently been looked at by AC Milan. Now, I know a lot of people have been laughing at that link, and I actually said in the group chat, am I the only one that can actually see this happening? Because the amount of Italian teams that seem to be looking at Scottish talent, and the Scottish talent are performing over in Italy, whether it's to do with the style of football that they play, I don't know, but right now it seems to be working. But I mean, it probably is a load of nonsense, but like, there's a lot of part of me going, I actually wouldn't be surprised if they did offer him, if not AC Milan, another Italian side. Yep. And I mean, if that's the case, I mean, I wouldn't be. What I'm saying is, I wouldn't be surprised if an Italian side did take David Turnbull and ended up having a pretty good career out there. Yeah. And obviously, Monty is a champion that he should be playing more, and if he played more, we would see a more consistent level out of David Turnbull. And I mean, we are seeing he is the top goal scorer for us at the minute. Whether that's to do with the obviously taking some penalties as well, I don't know. But obviously, his contract is coming up, and obviously it was brought up at the press conference, and Brendan Rodgers had this to say. He said, if a player doesn't want to sign, then he doesn't want to sign. He shrugged, I won't lose sleep over it. There were talks back in the summer, and I'm not sure how far they've gone, but clearly they've not gone as well as David, or maybe his representatives have wanted. Either way, he's at the stage of his contract where he can choose what he wants to do and decide whether his prospects are better elsewhere. But while he's here and committed, working and running, he'll always be a valuable asset. So it looks like, again, obviously he is in the starting 11 today, whether it's to do with the fact that there's nobody outperforming him. Brendan is still choosing to play David Turnbull. That's suggesting to me, from what he said though, is David Turnbull has got one eye out the door. And if these links, whether it's AC Milan or Bologna or it's Sampdoria or whoever Italian side that you want to mention are interested, I'm sure he's taking one eye looking at Lewis Ferguson and the likes that have went over there, and are now apparently been linked with Juventus, and obviously Aaron Hickey did well out there and he went to the Premier League after a season or two out there. I mean, it's an appealing place to go.
Aye.
So I think the thing as well, David, is like I always watch Celtic every game, as you guys know, and the problem with David Turnbull is he slows the game down. But that might just suit him in this area. They kind of like to slow the game down there, and
shoot it.
They like to take a shot from outside the box. So that's kind of David Turnbull's match maybe having, to be honest, slowing the game down and taking a shot from inside the box. So if you're David Turnbull's agent, you're kind of going, that's your kind of game, mate. I think. Do I think David Turnbull's up to that level? No, I probably don't. I was a big champion for David Turnbull when he first signed. I don't know if you guys remember, but he failed a medical and he was doing it Norwich City in the Premier League, and he was tempted by them. He said no to Celtic. Then he changed his mind, and then he got injured, and then he finally chose to come back to Celtic. I think the big thing for David Turnbull is there's been 3 Celtic managers that he's not impressed enough to get a starting spot on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably the game that Brendan sees him playing, because see, when you look at the Ross County match and the St Johnstone match, this is probably the games that Brendan sees him playing, because you look at this fixture last year at the end of the season, Celtic won 4-0. David Turnbull scores a free kick.
So he did, yeah.
So this is probably the attitude that Brendan has. He probably looks at it and goes, St Johnstone playing 10 men behind the ball, kicking a naughty football, kind of naughty challenges. That's a kind of match that David Turnbull thrives upon, because like, I don't know if you guys agree. You probably will. Like, St Johnstone and Ross County, they want you to take shots from distance. They don't want you playing intricate football, and I think that's why David Turnbull was suited so well for playing against Ross County.
We play against teams like that all the time, though, Regan. You know, like we play against teams that want to play that style of football 9 times out of 10. I mean, bar Rangers, and you know maybe Hibs every now and again. They'll come out and they'll attack us, and we can play the balls in behind. But most of the teams that we play against want to sit with 10 men behind the ball. So as a player like David Turnbull, somebody that we should be quite happy to just see leave, because he. I mean, proof's in the pudding so far that we've needed him. We've needed him. We've needed him to score those types of goals when it's looking like the team right now can't seem to find a way to break these teams down more often than not.
I mean, you can say that, but you can also say it's a bad indictment on Bernardo and also Awata as well, because then you go back to Peter Lowell and his son's transfer policy, because then you look at the players that are brought in. You know, Mark Lowell can sit there and go, "Well, we brought in 10 players during the summer," but if none of them are budging David Turnbull like a Home or a Awata or a Bernardo, if none of them are getting close to that, then you need to say there's something wrong with the recruitment.
What's going on though? Because I mean, these guys, you mentioned like Awata there, he comes off the bench and scores a goal, and then we haven't seen him again since, and it's like, right, well, what's the boy doing or not doing that he's, you know, you're just chucking a player on randomly, and it just so happens that he does alright, and then it's like, right, cool, see you in 6 weeks. Tillio gets chucked on against in a game where we're needing to try and grab a winner.
Yep.
There's 6 minutes to try and prove yourself. Doesn't he make the bench today? Like, what's happened there? Naroki's back apparently. One of our top most expensive signs of the summer. Nowhere to be seen.
No.
What's going on? I don't like. I mean,
it's quite worrying, David. That basically David Turnbull, as you said, is by going by what Brendan said. It looks like he's got one eye heading out the door. We've got boys like Home that's came in who, again, we use the term project player. Well, how do you develop a project player? You have to give them game time. But he can't get a game ahead of a guy who seemingly, the signs are pointing to, has got one eye out the door. So that, again, just goes back, again, the circle I talked about earlier on. We come back to the same point again about recruitment and investment, where it's just, there's something very, very wrong at the top. And again, it worries me when you go back to Brendan's words when he first came back to the club about how he's happy with everything, because just it doesn't feel right. Like we're doing our things very wrong at the moment. Say Home, project player I totally agree with, but the only way we're going to develop and turn them into a good player is by getting them on the park. He's our player who's here. He also signed at the start of the season, signed a long-term deal. Then you've got a guy who's running down his contract essentially and looks like he's heading out the door, who is getting game time ahead of him. So it's kind of stifling a lot of guys. And right back to the same problem again. The recruitment is just very off at the moment. And that worries me for January, because it's like, well, we clearly need it. What are we going to do? What's January going to be like? I'd like to hope that we come out the other end of January you're basically addressing all the issues that we've got right now, but I just don't know with this board and the recruitment system right now at Celtic. It's a total guessing game.
We're struggling to. Sorry, on you go, Deegan. On you go.
No, I've just been a bit nosy, to be honest. You were saying that Tillio's not on the bench. Who else is on the bench, David? Sorry.
I'll bring it back up, mate. Where is it? Here we go. So, Bain, Phillips, Home, Tomoki, Bernardo, Forrest, Ralston, and Mickey Johnson.
See, I think that's a strange one, because why would you give the guy oxygen to show himself and then no play him again the next week? And then, I just don't get it with Mikey Johnson. I mean, I understand people go, "Oh, Mikey Johnson's actually no bad," but see, when you look at what he did in Portugal last season, I think he only scored 2 goals in the full time he was there. He's no pulling up trees.
No.
And I think I think this is part of the problem as well, David. You said that Naroki's back fit. So why is Naroki not in the squad then?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
to me,
Speaking, I could understand the Rocky thing a few weeks back because he wasn't registered for the European squad, so
Aye.
it's a case of keeping
That-
skills
that's
in.
done.
But we're now staring down the barrel of we're heading out of Europe. I mean, the Feyenoord game in a couple of weeks, you may as well just play a team of like what basically the second string team that are available that are registered to play. There's no point in playing all the top players in the Feyenoord game. I know people talk about coefficients and the money that they can get from it, but we may as well, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I'm concerned that like it's been mentioned by Brown Warrior and also Mickey has also mentioned that Kyogo is definitely suffering from this change in tactics. He's been blunted with the new tactics, as Mickey says here. Now, that concerns me because I think we were all a bit like, oh, Kyogo signed a new 5-year deal. Amazing. He's obviously in it for the long haul. He's excited and enjoying his football at Celtic and likes the prospect of playing under Brendan Rodgers. But that honeymoon period's going to burst soon if he's starting to realise, hang on a minute, I'm really suffering from these tactics right now. I'm barely getting any touches of the ball. I'm having to come in deep and come into positions that I'm not really wanting to be in, and I'm not scoring, which ultimately then affects his national call-up for the Asian Cup, which obviously would suit us. However, a Kyogo that's not playing very well doesn't suit us. He then might start to go, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for here. Like, I was already hard enough to get into the Japanese national team when I was banging in the goals. Now I kind of get a sniff. His eye might start to wander and go, actually, this isn't for me. And then obviously, of course, we're going to have to look at January to get in another striker, because if ultimately he does go to the Asian Cup along with the likes of Maeda if he's fit, and Hatate if he's fit, and if he's still getting picked, then we're in a real pickle when it comes to finding a striker. And then he comes back, and then who knows what happens there, because if say we get a striker that starts banging the goals, which is great for us, maybe we start to go, well, what's the plans with Kyogo here? It's an issue that obviously Brendan Rodgers has to sort, but your mind does start to wander. Now, there was talks that we were looking at Sidney Van Hooijdonk. I can never say that fucking name. But it's been reported now that, obviously that there is apparent interest there from Celtic. However, that of course means that there's interest from other clubs, and one of those clubs just so happened to be also losing their Japanese talisman to the Asian Cup in January, who they spent £8 million in the summer, who only has scored 1 goal. But he does score for the national team, so I think he will go. That is Feyenoord, who of course looks like they'll still be in Europe next year. Yeah. So there's a real stumbling block that we may lose a potential striking option target to one of our European rivals in January. So if he is the guy that we are looking at to bring in and we don't get him, who does Brendan have in mind to be that support in January? Because it's a huge domino effect that's going on right now in the striking position.
Spot on. Don't have high expectations for January. Loans at best, maybe a project striker. Yeah, I know that Vistgarden's names came up again a couple of times ever since the summer. The Brøndby striker that we apparently were in for and couldn't agree a deal, supposedly that's still on the table. But that would be, again, because of his age and because of the amount of games he's played at professional level, that'd be seen as a project player, even though they're talking about 5-6 million. Who knows? Loans, could definitely see that happening. It might be a case of, we'll just patch it up until the end of the season. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But yeah, it's a real get. And you mentioned Feyenoord there for the Van Hooijdonk one. I know his dad played for Celtic as well, but his dad also played for Feyenoord and is a bit of a club legend there because he won them the UEFA Cup in 2002. I believe he scored 2 goals in the final against Dortmund, so he's got a connection with Feyenoord as well. So, yeah, we've got to go up against that. Great.
Some knowledge you've got there, Phil. I just think that in terms of David's point there about Kyogo, I just think that he knows for a fact that he's playing every game. I know people, Ivan Toney, are very arrogant and said the reason why he never came to Celtic was because he's not the main man, you know. But I just think that the fact that Kyogo knows every game, no matter how he plays, that he's in the team, that must have an impact on him as well. You know?
Yeah, because you need competition. I think that's why Kyogo did so well in the first 2 seasons, is because he had Giakoumakis to be his competitor. O's not going to kick Kyogo to the curb and take his spot. It just isn't going to happen. And Kyogo knows that, and that then breeds a complacency, which we don't. I'm not saying Kyogo's being complacent. However, like you said, Regan, at the minute he can do no wrong, even if he's playing shite. He will start every week.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. David, is, like you said, he probably had that 2 or 3 chances in Lazio and Roma on Tuesday. But see if he plays really good or really bad, he knows for a fact that he's going to be in because Brendan trusts him. But Brendan doesn't have the same trust with O. I mean, we've seen it with Lee Griffiths. Brendan didn't have the same trust with Lee Griffiths. So when it came to a big match, it was always Dembele. You know, so I think trust is a very important thing in football. I think sometimes we just think, if Kyogo's not playing, we'll just keep playing him. But sometimes when you're not playing well, you're going to have to take a bad time with this team to get that fire in the belly back. I mean, I'm not somebody that's played football in my life for obvious reasons, but I know that if you're not playing well, you need that competition there, David, to bring the fire in your belly to go, I need to step my game up here. Do you know? And it's the same with Callum McGregor. I mean, I don't want to harp on to Mark's point last week, but I'm sure if Brendan Rodgers, if he had somebody in there that he could bring in to say to Callum McGregor, look, you've played over 50 games this season, you've played for Scotland, you've played in friendlies, you've played over in Australia for that Celtic versus Everton Cup, you've played every game possible, so surely there needs to be a point where he's rested. But it just shows you that Bernardo, Home, and Tomoki Awata, they're not good enough. And I think that's kind of there needs to be direction for the club as well to go, right, as much as we like projects, if Kyogo gets injured, we can't have a project come in and replace them, because then it's a case of we're going to have burnout with these players. Do you know what I mean? I think right now, guys, we've got 3 exceptional players, and then the rest is just made up with projects. We've got Kyogo, we've got Martin Riley, and we've got Hatate, and the rest is just thrown in there with projects. And I think that's part of the problem, is that there's a lack of direction with the club at the moment, in terms of everybody in the granny can see that Kyogo's need the rest and Callum McGregor's need the rest. But at no point is Brendan Rodgers got the opportunity to rest these guys, because like you've got Thiago Home, who played 45 minutes at Celtic Park, stunk the place out, and this is a game today that Brendan knows he needs to win, because Rangers are playing at home and they're probably getting their penalty as usual. So he knows that we need to win the match, and he's not got the same trust as he's got in McGregor that he's got in Thiago Home. And you can't blame him, because what we've seen of Thiago Home is he's get sent off, and then every other game he's stuck to place it. So I don't think you can point fingers at the manager. I think at the moment you can point fingers at the board. I did find it interesting on Thursday or Friday that Brendan did mention 4 quality signings. He mentioned 4.
Yeah.
Yep, he did, and he also mentioned that he wanted them in the summer. Who were these signings? Who were them? Who were they? Who were them? Who were they?
Well, again,
You know what I
this
mean?
is something that's been brought up. I know Russell's mentioned it, and I think a few of us are starting to go, well, Brendan needs to basically find his box and challenge the board. We talked about when Neil Lennon came back second time around, it was Lennon light compared to first time around, where he had a bit more, stroke to buy players, but it felt like he was just happy to just take whatever was given to him. And it feels like that with this time around. After how Brendan left the first time around, it's quite remarkable to see him just kind of sitting there and going, I'll just take whatever's given to me. But then mentions after the fact that, there was these 4 players that I wanted. Well, why was you not pushing out for that? Remember in Ange Postecoglou, early in his time, I think we just lost. No, we drew with Dundee United, I believe it was. We dropped points. I think he said in the press conference after it, maybe I've not been forceful enough with the board about the players I need in. And then there was a bit of a push near the end of the window, getting more people in. And it's like, we're not privy to exactly what's going on and what's getting said at the top. But again, something just feels a bit off with what's being said to the press. And then when you're watching it play out in front of your eyes, it doesn't correlate here. Something's very, very odd.
There was a quote I saw as well. Obviously, though, he's been quite forceful, I think, recently in his last few press conferences. But then he's coming back and then he's like, now listen, Dermot Desmond, he wakes up and he thinks about Celtic, and he goes to sleep and he thinks about Celtic, and it's like he's pushing, but then he's not pushing hard enough. He's like making sure that he's still keeping them like sweet, but I don't know. I think we definitely have a Brendan Light. There's no doubt about it, and until he and I think Mark made a good point on TNF was, this is Brendan's playing with his own career right now as well. His own career is at risk because I think his time's up in the Premier League and he knows it, and that's why he probably was going to take a break from football. And like I said, he had discussions with clubs in Saudi, which I think he probably would have went for, by the way, if we hadn't come calling. Yeah. Now, and of course, there's this. He's the worst ever manager to manage in the Champions League. All these stupid little things that are getting thrown about now like that. He's not. He's well aware of all this, and he'll be wanting to try and correct this, and that'll be frustrating for him just as much as it is for us. The fact that, listen, you give me you've asked me to come back, and I've wanted to come back, but this was supposed to kind of, probably in his mind, elevate his career again, not make it worse. Like he's becoming a bit of a meme down south, and we all know he's an egomaniac, and that's not gonna. Yeah. It's not gonna, go down well with him, and we might find us at the point where he will walk away again. The worst thing he said, by the way, when he came back was that I'll be here for 3 years, because now he's put himself, in a corner now, where I think the board will also go, well, listen, be as frustrated as you want. You're not going to walk away again, because you've said to them, who you've already on thin ice with, by the way, the fans, that you'll not walk away again. So shut up and put up, basically. I can see that being an issue there as well, that he's shown his hand way too early, Rodgers, and I think that's played in the board's hand when it's come to signings. No, this is who we want you to sign, and I hear you about your 4 players, but we've got this Tilly old boy here, and we've got this young, best player in Korea apparently, and Bernardo, he came for the same place where Jota came for. You'll do fine with them. Don't worry about your 4 quality players, because remember, you said you wouldn't walk away again, and we don't want you doing that again, do we? Because that won't go down well. It didn't go down well the first time. It certainly won't go down well the second time when you've promised you won't go away. He played his hand too early, Phil. He's played his hand way too early, and I think that's been an issue this first 6 months.
It's one of the things that I've noticed straight away. As soon as he said that, I was like, I wouldn't have went down that route. I can understand if maybe it was just said as a sort of the excitement of it all, the buzz of the day that he said that, but it still should have. I thought he would have been, wise enough, more acute about it. Because he's shown his hand there essentially. And you're right, the fans obviously took it very, very bad when he left the first time around. Still many fans now that he's back still don't forgive him, even though he is now currently the Celtic manager, and we if he fails, the club fail. So we've got to get behind him regardless if you like him or not for what happened in 2019. But yeah, it was a bit of a poor move to do that. It was better just keep that one quiet, because the way things are playing out right now, it's deja vu. It just feels like 2019 all over again, where the footballs became a bit slower. It's not as rock and roll as the first season, and evidently the crux of it all was the investment and the players that were coming in. The man himself even had a dig at the board where he said the Marion Shved line, why are we signing another winger? We've got 1 million wingers. That was one of the big cracks. I mean, at the time, I was too blinded by it all to even see that was basically a subtle hint that things were not going well. And it was obviously became reality just a few weeks later when he walked. So it's baffling right now. And again, it's got to the point now where I'm just so scunnered when it comes to transfer windows, where I know we've got one coming up. And again, what are this board going to do? What is the strategy? I'd love to know. I'd love to be a fly on the wall at some of these meetings just to hear what they're actually discussing, if they are actually discussing good future plan. And again, people brought up in the chat about the future plan. We knew about the Asia Cup thing. We knew about that long in advance. It was going to affect us in January, and it's like, forwards in particular. And here we are now hoping that in January we're going to sign another forward. We need to basically sign them on day one of the January window. It needs to be similar to Ange's first January window, where we had signings announced before the window actually opened. Because we play St Mirren, I believe, on the 3rd of January, just after that. And that's at St Mirren's ground, which, the team that we've had some problems against in recent years. They beat us last year at their ground. So it's no one that you could just look at and go, I could be all right without Kyogo. And, because they are our 2 strikers, they're likely to be away. Because, St Mirren have shown that you can take points off us in recent years. So we can't just write it off as solely St Mirren. We've seen games in the past where if a team doesn't play with a recognised forward, it's a huge problem. I know there's been teams over the years like Spain and stuff have made it cool to play without a out-and-out number 9, but teams like Celtic can't take that risk. I can remember Brendan Rodgers doing it in his first spell. There was a game where I think we played Tom Rogic as a false 9, and I think we tried James Forrester because of an injury crisis we had, and I think both games we drew a blank, if I remember correctly. So if you've got to have an actual forward, so we can't just write off that game against St Mirren as we'll be fine. So we're going to need to announce a new striker pretty much on the first day of the January window. And at the moment, the way things are, would you trust them to do that? Probably not.
No, I wouldn't. And Regan, of course, we knew the likes of Maeda, Hatate and Ideguchi were coming in. I think we kind of knew even by now that they were coming in. And then they were announced on, was it Christmas Eve or something? They were announced it was something daft like that. So I don't see that. I don't see that happening. But Regan, we're going to wrap up because it's only 10 minutes to kick off, and we want you guys to get your pies in the oven. Maybe you've already got them in. Maybe you've already had one already. Who knows? But before we do, let's just get a wee quick prediction of the scoreline today. Regan, what are we going for?
I'll go for Celtic 3, St Johnstone 1. David, I'm tempted to agree with everything you're saying this morning, which is good for me. But
that's good for you, mate. I mean, I don't know why, because I talk shite every week. I don't know why you're agreeing with me. But thanks.
Little thing before we go, right? I was listening to the phone on Friday night, and Charlie McGrew phoned in, right? And he basically said the biggest problem that Celtic have in Europe is they're set up totally different to the way Rudder's tracking and Neil Lennon. He said, what we tend to do is we tend to try and play football in Europe. He said, see when Strachan's team played, Strachan's team were told to try and keep the game tight and then hit on the break. He said that's what Brendan Rodgers should be doing. He's not adapting enough. He was basically saying that we're playing too much football, which then plays into the hands of the better footballing teams.
Yeah, what he's saying, Regan, is that what Charlie Mulgrew is saying is that Neil Lennon is a better manager than Brendan Rodgers. Right, well, okay, that's what Charlie Mulgrew is saying, Regan, and it sounds like you're agreeing with him also. So, guys, Regan said that Neil Lennon is the greatest manager that ever managed Glasgow Celtic, and I'm sure he'll want to discuss that even more next week. Oh, Regan, I'm only playing. Right, I'm going to say 2-0 Celtic today. And Phil, what's your prediction, mate?
I was 2-0. I'll stick with what I said on Friday, but I think it's going to be one of those games we're going to have to wait a little while for the first goal. It's going to be one of those ones where we're just passing it around a lot and we'll get it eventually, and a second one will follow soon after. I think it's... Although ideally, we just want to kick off and be 1-0 up inside 5 minutes. That would be absolutely smashing Celtic if you could do that, but I just feel like it's going to be one of those ugly days. But at the end of the day, they get the 3 points on the board. That's all that matters.
Absolutely. Right, guys, I'm going to assume there will be a post-match piss today. Who knows? I'm sure there will be, though. So make sure you tune in for that. And, of course, all your favourite shows will be back next week also. Take care, guys. Enjoy the game. Mun Celts.
See you guys.
Take care.